The council chamber floated in the darkness of space like a jewel among the stars. It was enormous, larger than most cities, built around the orbit of a dying neutron star. Inside the main hall, representatives from 47 different civilizations gathered for their monthly meeting. Some breathed oxygen, others methane. Some had scales. Others had feathers or skin that glowed with soft light. They all came together to discuss matters that affected the entire galaxy. Today's meeting seemed routine at first. The Valorian ambassador talked about trade routes. The Zenith delegate complained about mining disputes. Then Ambassador Kreth of the Krethian Empire stood up. He was tall and covered in dark red armor that seemed to be part of his body. His species had conquered 12 star systems through military force. When he spoke, his voice was deep and commanding. "Council members, we have discovered a new species," Kreth announced. His words echoed through the chamber. "They call themselves humans. They live on a planet they named Earth in the outer spiral arm of the galaxy." Several council members leaned forward with interest. New species were always important to discuss. The galaxy was vast and intelligent life was rare enough to matter. "What do we know about them?" asked Elder Vess, a small floating creature who represented one of the oldest civilizations in the council. Her species had been traveling between stars for over 50,000 years. Kreth activated a holographic display. An image of Earth appeared, spinning slowly in the center of the chamber. It was a blue and green world with white clouds swirling across its surface. "This is their home. Our scouts have observed them for several months. They are primitive. They have only just begun to explore their own star system. They sent a few expeditions to their moon. They have basic satellites and space stations. Then why bring them to our attention?" asked another delegate, a being made of crystalline structures that chimed when it spoke. "Because they are dangerous," Kreth replied. His eyes narrowed. "Our analysis shows they are extremely violent. They have thousands of weapons capable of destroying their own planet. They fight constant wars among themselves. In just the last century, they killed hundreds of millions of their own kind in conflicts. If we allow them to develop further, they could become a threat to galactic peace." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Some delegates seemed alarmed. Others appeared skeptical. "Surely you exaggerate," said Ambassador Thel, whose species prided themselves on diplomacy. "Many young civilizations go through violent periods. We should offer guidance, not judgment." "I do not exaggerate," Kreth insisted. "I propose we eliminate this threat now, while they are still confined to their own world. A small strike force could sterilize the planet within days. It would be a mercy compared to the destruction they might cause in the future." The chamber erupted in argument. Some species agreed with Kreth. They believed in maintaining order through strength. Others were horrified at the suggestion of genocide. They argued for observation, for quarantine, for making contact and offering help. Elder Vess called for calm. "We will not make hasty decisions about extinction. That is not our way. We will study this species further and vote at the next council meeting." Kreth sat down, clearly unhappy with the delay. He whispered something to his aide, who nodded and left the chamber quickly. The debate continued for another hour. Representatives discussed protocols for new species. They reviewed past mistakes where they had acted too quickly or too slowly. Some wanted to send ambassadors to Earth immediately. Others wanted to place warning beacons around human space to keep them contained. Then something strange happened. The lights in the council chamber began to dim. Not all at once, but gradually, as if something was draining the power. The holographic displays flickered and died. The artificial gravity wavered for a moment. Several delegates cried out in alarm. "What is happening?" Someone shouted. "Is it a system failure?" Another asked. Then they felt it. A presence. Something had entered the chamber, though no doors had opened. It was not a physical sensation exactly. It was more like a pressure on their minds, a weight on their thoughts. Even species that did not have traditional sensory organs could feel it. A figure materialized in the center of the chamber, right where the hologram of Earth had been moments before. It was vaguely humanoid in shape, but seemed to be made of starlight and shadow mixed together. Its edges were unclear, constantly shifting. Two eyes that looked like miniature galaxies stared out at the assembled council. Several delegates immediately dropped to the floor in shock or reverence. Others backed away toward the exits. The more ancient species in the room went very still. "It cannot be," whispered Elder Vess. Her voice shook with something that might have been fear or awe or both. "The Wanderer. It has been over 10,000 years. The entity that called itself the Wanderer had not visited the Council in living memory, but it existed in the ancient records of nearly every old civilization. It was older than all of them. Some believed it had witnessed the formation of the galaxy itself. It traveled between stars long before any of the current Council members' ancestors had discovered fire. It had helped some species and ignored others. It had never explained its motives or its origins. The Wanderer spoke, and its voice was like the echo of a distant supernova. I have been listening to your debate. You have discovered the humans of Earth. No one dared to respond. Even Kreth remained silent, his usual confidence shaken. I have come to deliver a warning, the Wanderer continued. Do not agitate Earth. Do not threaten the humans. Do not attack their world. Leave them alone. The shock in the chamber was absolute. The Wanderer had not spoken to the Council in millennia, and now it appeared just to warn them about a primitive species that had barely left its own planet. Ambassador Kreth found his voice first. Perhaps his pride overcame his fear. With respect, Ancient One, these humans are no threat to beings such as yourself. But to the rest of us, they represent danger. They are violent and aggressive. Why should we heed your warning about such primitives? The Wanderer turned its galaxy eyes toward Kreth. The Krethian ambassador took an involuntary step backward. Because I have seen what they are. I have watched them for a very long time. You look at them and see primitives. You see their weapons and their wars and think you understand. You do not. You see only the surface. Elder Vess floated forward slightly. Ancient One, help us understand. Why are these humans special? What have you seen? The Wanderer was silent for a long moment. Then it raised one shifting limb and gestured. Images appeared in the air around them. Not holograms, but something more real. Windows into Earth itself. They saw humans living in deserts where the heat could kill most species. They saw humans in frozen lands where the cold would shatter crystalline beings like glass. They saw them in jungles, on mountains, in places that seemed designed to destroy life, and everywhere the humans thrived. They built shelters. They found food. They adapted. This is what you do not understand, the Wanderer said quietly. They do not break. No matter what their world does to them, they do not break. And Earth is not a kind world. The images faded. The Wanderer began to fade as well, becoming transparent. I have given you my warning, it said, its voice growing distant. What you do with it is your choice. But know this. I have seen species rise and fall across 100 million years. I have seen empires that spanned thousands of worlds crumble to dust. And I tell you now, if you agitate Earth, you will regret it. Then it was gone. The lights returned to normal. The delegates stood in stunned silence, looking at each other with confusion and concern. Elder Vess was the first to speak. We will postpone our vote. We need time to consider what we have witnessed. But Ambassador Kreth was already planning. He did not believe in ancient warnings or mysterious entities. He believed in power and military strength. And he was certain that no primitive species could threaten the might of the Krethian Empire. The council chamber remained tense for hours after the Wanderer disappeared. Delegates argued in small groups. Some wanted to immediately classify Earth as forbidden territory. Others thought the warning was meaningless superstition. Ambassador Kreth stood with several military-focused species, speaking in low voices and occasionally glancing at the spot where the ancient entity had appeared. Elder Vess called for order once again. The chamber slowly quieted as delegates returned to their seats. We must discuss what we witnessed. The Wanderer has not appeared before this council in recorded history. Its warning cannot be dismissed lightly. With respect, Elder, said a delegate from the Pyrian Collective, whose species resembled large insects with bronze exoskeletons. Why should we fear the warning? The humans have no space fleet. They have no weapons that could reach beyond their own moon. What could they possibly do to civilizations that control entire star systems? Kreth stood again. His confidence had returned. The Ancient One is old. Perhaps too old. Its mind may not be what it once was. We cannot make policy decisions based on cryptic warnings from beings we do not understand. We must deal with facts. The fact is that humans are violent. The fact is that they will eventually develop space travel. The fact is that they will become a problem. Better to solve that problem now. The Wanderer called Earth unkind, said Ambassador Thel thoughtfully. What did it mean by that? A world is just a world. Rocks and water and air. Elder Vess accessed her data systems. I have been reviewing our survey data on Earth. The planet has extreme temperature variations. It has violent weather patterns, hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, and volcanic eruptions. It has predatory creatures that hunt other creatures for food. It has diseases and parasites. By galactic standards, it is classified as a Class 7 death world. Several delegates made sounds of surprise. Class 7 meant a planet where most galactic species could not survive without extensive life support. Only the hardiest species could adapt to such environments. That explains their violent nature, Kreth said with satisfaction. They evolved in hell, so they became demons. All the more reason to eliminate them before they spread. Or, said Elder Vess slowly, it means they are survivors. The Wanderer said they do not break. Perhaps it meant that literally. They cannot be broken because their world tried to break them for millions of years and failed. A holographic screen appeared, showing images from Earth's history that their scouts had gathered. The delegates watched in silence as scenes played out. They saw early humans hunting animals much larger than themselves. They saw humans building fires to stay warm. They saw them creating tools from stone and bone. They saw them spreading across their planet, moving into every environment, every climate zone. Look at this, Elder Vess said, highlighting specific images. They have no natural weapons. No claws, no armor, no venom. They are not particularly strong or fast compared to their planet's predators. Yet they became the dominant species. How? No one answered. The question hung in the air. They persisted, came a voice. Everyone turned. The Wanderer had returned, appearing as suddenly as before, though less dramatically. That is the answer to your question, Elder Vess. They persisted. The ancient entity moved closer to the holographic display. Humans are persistence predators. Do you know what that means? It means they hunted by chasing their prey not for minutes, but for hours. For days. They followed animals until those animals collapsed from exhaustion. The prey was faster, stronger, had better weapons. But the humans just kept coming. They never stopped. Eventually, the prey died not from wounds, but from the simple fact that it could not rest, could not escape, could not make the human give up. The Wanderer gestured, and new images appeared. They showed a human running across a desert, following the tracks of an antelope. Hours passed in seconds in the vision. The antelope would run, rest, run again. The human just kept jogging at a steady pace. Finally, after a day of pursuit, the antelope collapsed. The human, sweating but still moving, approached and made the kill. This is what they are, the Wanderer said. They are the thing that does not stop. Their bodies are designed for it. They can regulate their temperature through sweating, which allows them to move in heat that would kill most creatures. They can go days without food, weeks without adequate nutrition. They heal from injuries that would be fatal to softer species. And most importantly, their minds refuse to accept defeat. Kreth was shaking his head. This means nothing in space warfare. Endurance does not matter when ships fight with energy weapons from thousands of kilometers away. The Wanderer turned to face him directly. You still do not understand. It is not about their bodies. It is about their psychology. Let me show you something else. The images changed. Now they showed human history. Wars and conflicts across thousands of years. But the Wanderer focused on specific moments. A city under siege, its people eating rats and leather to survive but never surrendering. A group of explorers trapped in ice, dying one by one, but still keeping scientific records until the very end. A nation bombed and burned, its cities destroyed, yet rising from the ashes within decades to become a world power. See how they respond to destruction? The Wanderer said quietly. They do not give up. They do not accept extinction. They adapt. They rebuild. They keep fighting long past the point where rational beings would surrender. You are describing berserkers, said a delegate from the hive consciousness, beings without reason who fight until death. We have encountered such species before. They are dangerous briefly, but they burn out quickly. No, the Wanderer replied. You still miss the point. They are not mindless. They are highly intelligent, creative, and capable of complex planning. But they combine that intelligence with an absolute refusal to quit. That combination is what makes them unique. That is what makes them terrifying. Elder Vess spoke carefully. Ancient One, you said you have watched them for a long time. How long? The Wanderer was quiet for a moment. When it spoke again, its voice carried a weight of vast time. I first encountered their ancestors 3 million years ago. They were barely intelligent then, just beginning to use simple tools. I have watched them evolve. I have seen them nearly go extinct at least 6 times. Ice ages, volcanic eruptions, diseases, droughts. Each time, their population dropped to only a few thousand individuals. Each time I thought they were finished. Each time they survived and came back stronger. 3 million years, whispered Elder Vess. You have been observing them for 3 million years. I have observed many species, the Wanderer said. Most die out. Most give up when their world becomes too harsh. Humans never did. And each time they survived near extinction, they learned. They became better at surviving. It is in their genetic memory now. The knowledge that they can endure anything. Kreeth stood up angrily. Enough of this mysticism. You speak of primitive hunters and ancient history. That does not tell us what they can do now in the age of space warfare and energy weapons. The Wanderer moved until it was directly in front of Kreeth. The Krethian ambassador held his ground, but his hands trembled slightly. You want to know what they can do now? The Wanderer asked. Very well. Let me tell you what will happen if you attack Earth. You will win the first battle. You have better ships, better weapons, better technology. You will destroy their space stations. You will kill many of them. And then you will discover your mistake. What mistake? Kreeth demanded. You will expect them to surrender. You will expect them to negotiate. You will expect them to behave as rational beings do when faced with superior force. They will not. Instead, they will unite. All their nations, all their factions, all their different groups will put aside every difference and focus on one goal, making you regret that you attacked them. The Wanderer's voice grew colder. They will retrofit every ship they have into a weapon. They will create new weapons in months that would take other species years to develop. They will send their people on suicide missions without hesitation. If those missions damage you, and they will never ever stop coming, you could destroy 90% of their population, and the remaining 10% would keep fighting. You could bomb their planet into a wasteland and they would fight you from bunkers and caves. That is insanity, Kreeth said. Yes, the Wanderer agreed. By your standards, it is insanity. By their standards, it is determination, and that is why I warn you. Do not agitate Earth, because once you start a war with humanity, the only way to end it is to kill every single one of them, and I do not believe you have the stomach for that level of genocide, but more importantly, I do not believe you can succeed. They are very, very good at surviving. The Wanderer began to fade again. I have warned you twice now. I will not warn you a third time. The choice is yours. But remember this. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have watched species that seemed invincible crumble into dust. And I tell you truly, I fear what humanity might become if you give them a reason to unite against an external enemy. Right now they fight each other. Make them fight you, and you will create something far worse than what they are now. You will create a species with purpose. Then it was gone again, leaving the council in shocked silence. 6 months had passed since the Wanderer's warning. The Galactic Council had been unusually quiet during that time. Some delegates had tried to pass resolutions to protect Earth. Others had argued for stricter monitoring. In the end, politics and bureaucracy slowed everything down, as it often did. No decision was made. Earth remained uncontacted and unprotected by galactic law. Ambassador Kreeth had not been idle. He had spent those months preparing carefully. He did not want to launch a full invasion that might alarm the rest of the council. Instead, he planned something more subtle, a test. A small military action that would provoke the humans and show everyone how they truly responded to superior force. His target was the Human Research Station on Mars. It was a small facility, home to about 200 scientists and support staff. They were studying the Red Planet, looking for signs of ancient life, learning how to survive in harsh environments. They had no weapons. They had only basic defensive shields meant to protect against micrometeorites and radiation. They were an easy target. The Krethian strike fleet consisted of 3 ships. In their military, 3 ships were considered a tiny force, barely worth mentioning. Each ship was armed with plasma cannons and had shields that could withstand nuclear weapons. They could destroy a small moon if needed. For the Mars station, they were overwhelming force. Commander Voth led the strike fleet. He was a career military officer who followed orders without question. When his ships entered the human solar system, they did so without hiding. They wanted to be seen. They wanted the humans to know what was coming. On Mars, the research station picked up the approaching ships immediately. Dr. Sarah Chen, the station commander, watched her screen with confusion as 3 unknown vessels appeared on their sensors. They were enormous, far larger than anything humanity had built, and they were heading straight for the station. Try to establish communication, she ordered. All frequencies. Her communications officer worked frantically. I'm broadcasting greetings in all the languages we've prepared for first contact. Nothing, they're not responding. Sarah felt cold fear spreading through her chest. This was not how first contact was supposed to happen. In all the scenarios humanity had prepared for meeting alien life, they had assumed there would be communication first, negotiation, diplomacy. All personnel. This is Commander Chen, she said into the station-wide intercom. We have unknown ships approaching. Move to the emergency shelters immediately. This is not a drill. The station erupted into controlled chaos. Scientists and technicians ran through corridors, heading for the reinforced sections of the base that could survive accidents or equipment failures. They were designed to protect against natural disasters, not military attack, but it was all they had. The Krethian ships took up positions around the station. Commander Voth opened a communication channel. His message was broadcast not just to the Mars station, but to every human satellite and receiver in the solar system. He wanted everyone to hear. Attention, humans of Earth. I am Commander Voth of the Krethian Empire. Your species has been judged a potential threat to galactic peace. You will immediately submit to Krethian authority. Your governments will surrender control of your military forces. You will accept our administrators. If you refuse, we will demonstrate the consequences. On Earth, in the United Nations building in New York, chaos erupted. Representatives from every nation crowded into emergency meetings. Military commanders were pulled from their sleep. Scientists who had dedicated their lives to searching for alien intelligence were suddenly faced with the reality of hostile contact. On Mars, Dr. Chen responded to the Krethian message with as much calm as she could manage. This is Dr. Sarah Chen, commander of Mars Research Station 1. We are scientists. We have no weapons. We pose no threat to anyone. Please, let's talk about this. We can negotiate. Commander Voth did not respond to her directly. Instead, he gave the order to his weapons officer. Fire. Destroy the station. The plasma cannons lit up the darkness of space. Beams of superheated energy struck the Mars station. The shields held for approximately 3 seconds before collapsing. The beams cut through the habitat modules like a knife through paper. Atmosphere vented into space. Entire sections of the station exploded. Dr. Chen had just enough time to realize what was happening before the command center was hit. She died instantly, along with everyone in the central habitat. Those who had made it to the emergency shelters survived a few seconds longer, before those sections were targeted and destroyed as well. In less than 5 minutes, Mars Research Station 1 was gone. 200 scientists and support staff were dead. The Krethian ship scanned the wreckage to confirm there were no survivors, then turned their attention toward Earth. Commander Voth broadcast another message. This was a demonstration. You have 72 hours to surrender. If you refuse, we will begin orbital bombardment of your military facilities. Resistance is futile. Submit and you will be allowed to live under Krethian rule. On Earth, the world watched in horror as the news spread. Footage from the Mars station's external cameras had been automatically transmitted back to Earth before the facility was destroyed. Everyone saw the Krethian ships. Everyone saw the attack. Everyone saw their people die. The response was not what Commander Voth expected. There was no panic in the streets. No riots, no desperate calls for surrender. Instead, something else happened. Something that should have been impossible for a species that had never been united. In the United Nations, the Security Council met. For the first time in history, every member voted the same way. The resolution was simple: total mobilization. Every resource of every nation would be dedicated to defending Earth. All previous conflicts and disagreements were suspended. Humanity would face this threat together. Within hours, military bases around the world went to full alert. Factories that made cars and computers began retooling to produce weapons and ship components. Space agencies pooled their knowledge. Private space companies offered their resources without asking for payment. Thousands of volunteers lined up at recruitment centers. The response was not driven by hope of victory. Most military analysts knew humanity could not win a conventional war against enemies with such superior technology. But that did not matter. The Krethians had killed 200 people and threatened Earth. They had to be answered. In secret military bunkers, generals and scientists worked around the clock. If they could not match the aliens in technology, they would have to be smarter, more creative, more willing to do whatever it took. Plans were drawn up for unconventional warfare, suicide missions, kamikaze attacks, biological weapons, nuclear weapons, anything and everything that might hurt the enemy. A Chinese general named Wu looked at the plans his team had developed and felt sick. They were going to turn every ship, every satellite, every piece of space debris into a potential weapon. They were going to make space itself a death trap. Many humans would die in the process. But the aliens would learn that threatening Earth had a cost. "We are going to lose," said one of his advisors quietly. "You know that, right? We cannot win against ships that can destroy space stations in minutes." General Wu nodded slowly. "Yes, we will probably lose. But we will make them remember us. We will make them understand that humanity does not go quietly into the dark. And if we are very lucky, we will hurt them badly enough that they leave and never come back." In orbit around Earth, the International Space Station and other facilities began evacuating. Everyone knew they would be the first targets. But even as civilians fled, military personnel moved in. They brought weapons, missiles, nuclear warheads. They were going to turn every space station into a fortress or a bomb. The Crethean ships arrived at Earth orbit exactly 72 hours after their ultimatum. Commander Voth expected to find a frightened planet ready to negotiate. Instead, his sensors detected hundreds of human ships moving into defensive positions. They were crude vessels built for cargo and research, now hastily armed with missiles and kinetic weapons. They would be easy to destroy, but there were so many of them. And they were not trying to run. They were moving to intercept. Voth opened a communication channel. "This is your final warning. Stand down or be destroyed." The human response came from Admiral James Mitchell, who had been given command of Earth's defense fleet. His voice was calm and cold. "This is Admiral Mitchell of the United Earth Defense Force. You came to our system uninvited. You murdered 200 of our people. You threatened our home. We do not negotiate with murderers. If you want Earth, you will have to take it. And we will make you pay for every meter of space." Commander Voth was confused. Did these primitives not understand the situation? His 3 ships could destroy their entire fleet. He gave the order to attack. The battle was short and brutal. Crethean plasma cannons tore through human ships like paper. Dozens of vessels were destroyed in the first minutes. But the humans did not retreat. They kept coming. When their weapons could not penetrate Crethean shields, they rammed their ships into the enemy vessels. When they could not win, they tried to take the enemy with them. One human cargo ship, its crew already dead from a plasma strike, had its autopilot programmed for a collision course. Commander Voth's reinforcements arrived 3 months after the initial battle for Earth. The Crethean Empire had sent an entire battle fleet, 20 ships strong, with thousands of soldiers and enough firepower to conquer small civilizations. Admiral Kreth himself came to oversee the operation. This was his plan, and he wanted to see it through personally. They expected to find a broken humanity, exhausted from the first battle, ready to surrender. They found the opposite. Human ships now numbered in the thousands. They were still crude and inferior in technology, but they filled the space around Earth like a swarm of angry insects. Defensive platforms had been built throughout the solar system. The asteroid belt had been turned into a minefield. Every major moon had weapons installations. "How is this possible?" Admiral Kreth demanded as he reviewed the sensor data. 3 months ago they had barely 50 ships. Now they have thousands. His intelligence officer looked uncomfortable. "Sir, they have converted their entire industrial capacity to war production. Every factory, every shipyard, every resource is being used to build weapons and ships. They are launching new vessels daily. Their construction rate is unprecedented." Kreth studied the tactical display. The human ships were arranged in a defensive shell around Earth, layer after layer of vessels. Behind them, the planet itself showed signs of massive construction. Orbital elevators were moving materials into space continuously. The humans were building faster than the Cretheans could destroy. "They cannot sustain this," Kreth said firmly. "They must be exhausting their resources. We will simply destroy their ships faster than they can build new ones." The second battle for Earth began with a Crethean bombardment. Plasma cannons fired from maximum range, destroying dozens of human ships. The human response was immediate and chaotic. They launched everything they had. Missiles, kinetic projectiles, even modified cargo containers filled with explosives. Most of the human weapons were destroyed before reaching their targets. But not all of them. The Cretheans had better shields and armor, but they were not invincible. When a nuclear missile penetrated their shields and struck a Crethean cruiser, it caused catastrophic damage. The ship did not explode, but it was crippled and had to withdraw. What shocked the Cretheans more than the weapons was the tactics. Human ships did not fight like a proper military force. They did not maintain formations. They did not retreat when damaged. Instead, they used guerrilla warfare in space. Small groups of ships would dart in, fire everything they had, then scatter. Damaged ships that could no longer fight would set collision courses with enemy vessels. They are using suicide tactics. Voth reported to Admiral Kreth. They are deliberately sacrificing their ships and crews. Then they will run out of ships and crews, Kreth replied coldly. Continue the attack, but the humans did not run out. For every ship destroyed, 2 more appeared. And the human tactics became more creative and more brutal as the battle continued. A human captain named Elena Rodriguez commanded a small frigate that had been converted from a mining ship. Her vessel was damaged, systems failing, half her crew dead. She received a retreat order from Fleet Command, but she had a different idea. Her ship still had engines, and there was a Crethean carrier ahead of her. All remaining crew evacuate to the escape pods, she ordered. I am taking the ship in manually. Her crew protested, but she was firm. That is an order. Get to the pods. You have 30 seconds. When the escape pods had launched, Elena sat alone in the command chair. She aimed her ship at the Crethean carrier and pushed the engines to maximum. The aliens tried to destroy her vessel, but she flew erratically, making herself a difficult target. Plasma fire scorched her hull. Shields were long gone, but she kept flying. At the last second, she detonated the ship's reactor. The explosion was not large enough to destroy the Crethean carrier, but it ripped open a section of its hull. Dozens of Crethean fighters stored in that section were destroyed. The carrier had to withdraw for repairs. This pattern repeated across the battlefield. Human crews sacrificed themselves to damage enemy ships. It was not efficient warfare. It was not elegant, but it was effective. The Cretheans had to respect the humans' willingness to die for every meter of space. But the turning point came not from space battles, but from something the Cretheans had not expected: psychological warfare. A human communication was broadcast on all frequencies. It showed footage from the Mars Station massacre, the faces of the 200 scientists who had died, their families on Earth talking about them, children who would never see their parents again. Then it showed human ships ramming Crethean vessels, damaged human stations detonating rather than being captured, soldiers volunteering for suicide missions with smiles on their faces. The message was simple. You wanted war with humanity. This is what war with humanity looks like. We will never stop. We will never surrender. Kill 1 billion of us and the rest will keep fighting. Destroy our cities and we will fight from the ruins. This is what you bought when you murdered our people. We hope it was worth it. The broadcast was sent not just to the Crethean fleet but throughout the galaxy. Other civilizations watched. The Galactic Council watched. And they saw something that disturbed them deeply. They saw a species that did not fight to win. They fought to make their enemy regret starting the fight. Crethean morale began to suffer. Soldiers who had expected an easy conquest now faced an enemy that seemed to welcome death, if it meant hurting their attackers. Some Cretheans began to question whether the war was worth it. They had lost more ships in 4 months fighting humans than they had in a decade of conquering other species. Admiral Kreth tried to maintain discipline. He ordered more aggressive attacks. He threatened his own officers with punishment if they showed weakness. But the doubts spread. Then came the incident that broke the Crethean offensive. A human ship, the Revenge, had been modified into a weapon platform. It was commanded by Captain Marcus Webb, a former engineer who had lost his entire family when the Mars station was destroyed. His ship carried a prototype weapon that human scientists had developed, a focused electromagnetic pulse that could temporarily disable shields. Webb's mission was considered suicide. He had to get close enough to the Crethean flagship to use the weapon. Every sensor on the enemy fleet would see him coming. He would be torn apart by defensive fire, but Webb volunteered anyway. This is for Sarah, he said quietly as his ship accelerated toward the enemy. Sarah Chen had been his sister, the commander of the Mars station. The Cretheans did exactly what Webb expected. They fired everything at his ship. But Webb had a trick. His ship was surrounded by dozens of drones. each one programmed to mimic the Revenge's sensor signature. The Crethians could not tell which target was real. By the time they realized their mistake, Webb was too close. He fired the electromagnetic pulse. The Crethian flagship's shields collapsed. Before they could restart, Webb's ship, packed with nuclear warheads, detonated. The explosion was enormous. Admiral Kreth had just enough time to realize what was happening before his flagship was destroyed. He died along with 3,000 of his crew. The loss of their admiral broke the Crethian fleet. Without centralized command, individual ship captains made their own decisions. Some wanted to continue the fight. Others wanted to retreat. The fleet fell into disarray. Human forces pressed their advantage. They launched everything they had saved for this moment. Thousands of missiles, kinetic projectiles, even ships filled with explosives piloted by volunteers. The Crethian formation collapsed. Commander Voth, now the senior officer, made the decision to retreat. He gathered what remained of the fleet and withdrew to the outer system. Of the 20 ships that had come to conquer Earth, only 11 remained functional. The rest were destroyed or crippled. Before jumping away, Voth sent one final message. It was not addressed to the humans. It was sent to the Galactic Council. This is Commander Voth of the Crethian Empire. I am reporting that our campaign against Earth has failed. The humans are not like other species. They do not fear death. They do not know when they are beaten. I have watched them sacrifice their people by the thousands just to damage our ships. I have seen them turn every object in their solar system into a weapon. I have seen them laugh as they flew ships into our vessels. His voice shook slightly. We killed thousands of them. Tens of thousands. And they just kept coming. They built ships faster than we could destroy them. They developed new weapons in weeks. They never stopped, never slowed down, never asked for mercy or offered surrender. He paused, and when he spoke again, there was something like fear in his voice. I do not know what they are, but they are not normal. Admiral Kreth is dead. Our fleet is broken, and the humans are already building more ships. If we had stayed, they would have killed us all eventually. Not because they are stronger, but because they will not stop. They cannot stop. It is not in their nature. The message ended. The Crethian fleet jumped away, leaving the solar system behind. In the space around Earth, the surviving human crews watched them go. There was no celebration. Too many had died. But there was grim satisfaction. They had hurt the enemy. They had made the aliens regret their attack. General Wu stood in a command center on Earth, watching the enemy retreat on his screens. 2 years had passed since the Crethian fleet retreated from Earth's solar system. In that time, humanity had not rested. They had continued building, expanding, and preparing. The war had changed them fundamentally. Nations that had been enemies for centuries now worked together. Resources were shared. Knowledge was pooled. Humanity had finally found something that could unite them. The knowledge that they were not alone, and that the universe could be hostile. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session once again. This time the chamber was packed. Word of humanity's resistance had spread throughout known space. Some civilizations were impressed. Others were terrified. Most were confused. How had a primitive species fought off a Crethian fleet? Elder Vess called the meeting to order. Her voice carried the weight of concern. We are here to discuss the human situation. The Crethian campaign failed. Now we must decide what to do. Do we quarantine Earth? Do we attempt diplomacy? Do we assemble a coalition force to finish what the Crethians started? Before anyone could answer, the chamber's lights dimmed. The Wanderer had returned. This time no one was surprised. They had been expecting it. The ancient entity materialized in the center of the chamber. Its form seemed more solid than before, more present. Its galaxy eyes swept across the assembled delegates. I told you. You did not listen. Now you want to know what to do about the problem you created. Ambassador Thel spoke carefully. Ancient One, we did not authorize the Crethian attack. Many of us tried to prevent it. And yet it happened, the Wanderer replied. And now humanity knows they are not alone. They know the galaxy is hostile. You have taken a species that fought only among themselves and given them a common enemy. Do you understand what you have done? A delegate from the Purion Collective spoke up. We have reviewed the battle data. The humans sustained massive casualties but refused to surrender. Their tactics were barbaric. Suicide attacks, ramming maneuvers. They do not fight with honor or logic. Are these the beings we want in our galactic community? The Wanderer turned to face the speaker. You mistake ruthlessness for barbarism. The humans did what they had to do to survive against a superior force. They adapted. They innovated. They sacrificed. Those are not flaws. Those are strengths. They are dangerous, insisted a delegate from a pacifist species. They have now built a war machine. They have ships. They have weapons. They will not stop with defending their own system. They will expand. They will threaten others. Yes, the Wanderer agreed. They will expand. That is what successful species do. But whether they threaten others depends entirely on how you treat them now. Elder Vess floated forward. Ancient One, you have warned us about humanity. You have told us they do not break. But you have not explained why you care so much. Why have you protected them? What makes them special to you? The Wanderer was silent for a long moment. When it spoke, its voice carried emotions that ancient beings were not supposed to have. I will show you. I will show you what I see when I look at humanity. Perhaps then you will understand. The chamber dissolved. Suddenly, all the delegates found themselves standing on a plain in Africa, 3 million years ago. The sun was setting. A small group of early humans huddled around a fire. They were not yet the species they would become. They were prey animals, weak and vulnerable. Around them in the darkness, predators waited. This is where they started, the Wanderer's voice echoed across the vision. They should have died here. They had no claws, no fangs, no armor, but they had something else. They had each other, and they had fire. And they had the refusal to give up. The scene shifted. Now they saw ice sheets covering much of the planet. The human population had dwindled to a few thousand individuals. They were starving, freezing, dying, but they survived in small groups, sharing food, protecting the weak, keeping the knowledge of fire and tools alive. They nearly went extinct 6 times, the Wanderer said. 6 times their population dropped below 10,000 individuals. Any rational species would have given up. They did not. They persisted. The vision changed again, moving through thousands of years and moments. They saw humans spreading across the planet, crossing deserts, climbing mountains, sailing oceans, building cities, creating art, music, philosophy, fighting wars, destroying civilizations, rebuilding, always moving forward, never stopping, do you see? The Wanderer asked. They are not special because they are strong. They are not special because they are smart. There are stronger species. There are smarter species. They are special because they refuse to accept defeat. Because they adapt to anything. Because they carry their dead forward and remember them. Because they dream of tomorrow even when today is hell. The scene shifted one more time. Now they stood on Mars, inside the research station moments before it was destroyed. Dr. Sarah Chen was speaking to her crew. If we die here today, we die knowing we reached for the stars. We die knowing we tried. That is enough. The delegates watched as the Crethian plasma beams cut through the station. They saw the scientists die, still at their posts, still recording data until the very end. Then they were back in the council chamber. Several delegates were visibly shaken by what they had witnessed. That is why I warned you, the Wanderer said quietly, because I have watched them for millions of years. I have seen them survive things that would destroy other species. And I knew absolutely that if you threatened them, they would fight back with everything they had. Not because they are violent by nature, but because they are survivors by nature, and survivors do not go quietly. What do we do now? Asked Elder Vess. How do we move forward? The Wanderer's form seemed to solidify further. You have a choice. You can try to destroy them, but that will require a level of commitment and ruthlessness that I do not believe you possess. You would need to sterilize their planet completely. Kill every human down to the last child, because if even a few survive, they will remember, and they will come for you eventually. Not next year, not in a decade, but they will come. They are patient when they need to be. Several delegates looked horrified at the suggestion. The idea of complete genocide was unthinkable to most civilized species. Or, the Wanderer continued, you can make peace. You can bring them into the galactic community. You can offer them trade, technology, knowledge. You can turn them from enemies into allies. Why would we want them as allies? Demanded a military-focused delegate. They are brutal warriors. Exactly, the Wanderer said. They are warriors, and there are threats in this galaxy that you have not faced yet. Dangers in the dark spaces between stars. When those threats come, and they will come eventually, you will want humanity on your side. You will want soldiers who do not know how to quit. You will want engineers who can build weapons from scraps. You will want a species that treats survival as a personal mission. Ambassador Thel spoke thoughtfully. You are saying we should recruit them? Turn them from a threat into an asset? I am saying you should recognize what they are and work with them instead of against them. They do not want to conquer the galaxy. They want to explore it. They want to learn. They want to meet new species and see new worlds. But you attacked them first. You made them militarize. You made them afraid. Now you must undo that damage. Elder Vess made a decision. I will lead a delegation to Earth. We will offer them peace. We will offer them a place in the Galactic Council. We will make reparations for the lives lost. The Krathian Empire will be sanctioned for their unsanctioned attack. The Krathian Empire will not accept sanctions, said a delegate. They are too proud. The Wanderer's eyes flared. The Krathian Empire will accept whatever we decide. Because if they do not, I will take action myself. And I assure you they do not want that. There was something in the ancient entity's voice that made it clear this was not an empty threat. The Krathians were a powerful military force. But the Wanderer was something else entirely. Something older and more dangerous than any single civilization. The vote was taken. The Council agreed to send a peace delegation to Earth. Reparations would be paid. Technology would be shared. Humanity would be offered membership in the galactic community. 3 months later, Elder Vess arrived at Earth orbit with a fleet of peaceful vessels. They broadcast their intentions clearly. They came with no weapons active. They came with offers of peace and friendship. On Earth, in the United Nations building, world leaders gathered to receive the alien delegation. There was debate about whether to trust them. The Krathian attack was still fresh in memory. 40,000 humans had died. Cities had been evacuated. Resources had been exhausted in preparation for a war that might never end, but ultimately humanity chose to listen. They chose diplomacy, not because they were weak, but because they were strategic. Peace would give them time to recover, to learn, to grow stronger. Elder Vess met with the human representatives in person. She was small and fragile looking compared to the humans, but she spoke with authority. On behalf of the Galactic Council, I apologize for the unprovoked attack on your species. The Krathian Empire acted without authorization. We offer reparations, technology, and friendship. We invite humanity to join the galactic community. President Maria Santos of Brazil, serving as Earth spokesperson, listened carefully. Then she responded.